This is the man I covered, the man I got to know a little bit in Chicago during that Last Dance season. You've probably seen the documentary. I also got to know his coach, Phil Jackson. Phil was back in the news the other day. You probably caught it. Blast from the past, saying he no longer watches NBA basketball. The league lost him the way he believes it lost a segment of people during the bubble playoffs because there were way too many Black Lives Matter slogans on players' jerseys painted on the floor that he and a segment of the audience turned off by. Too much politics. Can't combine politics and sports, said Phil Jackson. I spoke my piece about all that on Undisputed. Phil, by the way, was being interviewed by the famed producer Rick Rubin, co-founder of Def Jam Records with Russell Simmons. Rick Rubin, an early promoter of hip-hop, starting with Run DMC. It just seemed ironic to me. So, does Phil Jackson have some sort of racist streak somewhere down in him? I don't know for sure, but Scottie Pippen certainly believed that he did. But here's the point. Michael Jordan loved Phil Jackson with all his heart and soul. He blindly loved Phil Jackson. So did Shaquille O'Neal, and so did Kobe Bryant. And I never got it. I never could understand exactly why those three were so willing to die for Phil's cause. Those three black superstars, all-time greats, gladly won 11 championships for Phil Jackson. I always said Phil's greatest ever at juggling, managing superstar egos. That was his talent, not X's and O's. He didn't need X's and O's. He left those to assistants, if that. Phil did play basketball. He was 6 feet 8 inches tall, which was pretty imposing. He did win 2 rings as a pretty good off-the-bench player for the Knicks back in their championship run, 1970, 1973. But mostly, Phil Jackson was a Svengali. He was a sorcerer who could cast these spells over superstars in ways no coach has ever been able to cast a spell. The Last Dance was a big lie. It was a fraud. It was a sham. It was a motivational trick or ploy by Svengali Phil, the spin master, used to ignite and propel Michael Jordan to a 6th and final championship. There was no need for Michael Jordan to retire prematurely, and yet he stayed out of basketball for the next 3 years. He didn't come back in Washington till he was 39 and then 40, just ceremonial years. He wasted the last 3 years of his prime for Phil Jackson on principle. I admired it. I used to laud him for it, but now it makes no sense. Now it just seems like a shame and a sham. Phil went right on, as you know, to Shaq and Kobe. And after 3 championships, Phil wrote a book blasting Kobe, saying Kobe was nothing compared to Michael Jordan and that Kobe was virtually uncoachable. He wrote that. And then somehow Phil Jackson managed to mend that fence with Kobe Bryant because he can cast his spell, and he recast it, and somehow put him completely back under that spell to the point they won 2 championships together without Shaq. What? He's a sorcerer. He's a wizard. He's an evil genius. 11 championships were won for Phil Jackson by black superstars. Then he had the audacity the other day to say Black Lives Matter did not matter to him. Did not matter. If not for Phil Jackson, we would have had 2 or 3 more great years of Michael Jordan. And yet, Michael Jordan had one weakness in life. The strongest man I ever knew had one weakness, one blind spot. Phil Jackson. I hope you enjoyed that video. You ready for more? Make sure you click that subscribe button for all the exclusive content from the Skip Bayless Show. And don't forget to check out the full episode of the show wherever you get your podcasts by clicking the link in the description.